Okay. Alright. Now, most of us are familiar with the playoff system in sports. The way this works is that teams with a certain win-loss percentage compete against each other, and then the winner of each series advances until there are only 2 teams left to play for a championship. This is the way it works in the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and other professional sports leagues. However, this is not the way it works with college football. In college football, teams are ranked in the Bowl Championship Series, or as I'll be referring to it through the rest of the presentation, the BCS. And at the end of the season, certain ranked teams get to compete in bowl games. Whoever is ranked first and second play in the national championship game. However, rankings are not always clear and lead to controversy, which brings me to my main claim. The Bowl Championship Series ranking system fails to choose a clear and accurate national champion. I will show you this by talking to you about flawed BCS methodology, conference agreements with the BCS conferences that favor certain teams, and finally I will give you some real examples and expert testimony that demonstrate the ineffectiveness of the BCS. Now, the first thing, as I said, will be the BCS methodology. Now, the way the BCS rankings are calculated composed of 3 different things. 1/3 of your ranking is calculated by computers. 6 different computer programs are used, and this is the first thing I'll be talking about. Now, these computer programs are developed usually by statisticians from universities, and they take different factors into account. And actually, these 6 different computer systems have no set guidelines of how they calculate the different rankings. The BCS has chosen them for various reasons, and 1/3 of the score of your ranking is dependent upon these computers. Now, obviously, computers don't know a lot about sports. There are certain things that come into sports, such as I don't know if any of you have heard of a runner's high, certain things that a computer just can't comprehend that can affect the outcome of the game. Now, in a New York Times article, Hal S. Stern, a professor of statistics at UC Irvine, advocated that no self-respecting statistician should have anything to do with the BCS. In an article published in the Journal of Quantitative Analysis in Sports 2 years ago, he wrote that the BCS computer ranking serves little more than a confirmation of the other 2 factors that determine the ranking, which I'll talk to you about next. The people who run the computer rankings, he noted, have never been given any clear objective criteria to design their programs, and they are not allowed to use the score or site of the game in the calculations. The statistician is urged to boycott a refusal by the community of statisticians to lend credibility to a system he regards as scientifically bankrupt. Now, as I said, there's 2 other things that come into the calculation of your ranking. And these other 2 things are polls by sports authorities. Many of these authorities, most of them, are college football coaches. Needless to say, active coaches in college football have certain biases towards other teams. Now, hopefully they would use it objectively, but that probably isn't always the case. So 2/3 of your ranking is whatever people think of you, and that determines who gets to go to the big national championship game. Now, the second thing, main claim, is that conference agreements with the BCS, the Bowl Championship Series, favor certain teams, and actually money issues get in the way of who gets to go to bowls. I'm actually going to tell you now some criteria that the BCS uses to pick who gets to go to the end of the year games. Now, the Atlantic Coast Conference, Big 12, Big East, Big 10, Pac-10, and Southeastern conferences, which are all divisions that teams are put into to compete against each other during the regular season, go to the BCS automatically. This season, the first team in each conference to qualify receives $18 million, whether they win, lose, or draw. If the second team qualifies, they get $4.5 million additionally. Now, certain conferences, such as the Conference USA, the Mid-American Conference, the Mountain West Conference, the Sun Belt Conference, and the Western Athletic Conference, will earn 1 automatic berth in a BCS Bowl. They are also Division I teams, but they are limited to 1. And if 2 teams from those bowls qualify to be in bowls, only one of them gets knocked out. Needless to say, there's big money in who gets to go to the larger bowls, such as the Orange Bowls, Sugar Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, Rose Bowl, and the National Championship. So that has a lot to do with it. And so the third thing I said was examples from history. that demonstrate my point. There's been many split titles in college football and controversy. For example, in the 2000-2008-9 season, Boise State, which is in one of the smaller conferences, finished 9th in the BCS rankings and ended up in the San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl. Needless to say, this is not one of the larger games, and they got to compete against Texas Christian University. However, both participants ranked higher in the BCS rankings than either of the participants of the Orange Bowl, one of the large BCS bowls where you get $18 million. The two teams in the San Diego Credit Union Bowl, despite being higher ranked, only received $750,000 each. Additionally, in 2001, one-loss Nebraska made it to the championship game ahead of one-loss in Pac-10 championship Oregon as the #2 ranked team, even though Nebraska lost to Colorado in the Big 12 Conference championship game, failing to win its own conference. Nebraska went on to a blowout loss in the national championship game against Miami, while the Colorado team, which defeated Nebraska, lost to Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl, 38-16. And in 2003, there were 3 one-loss teams: LSU, Oklahoma, and USC. Now, the AP actually crowns its own national champion, and the BCS crowns one, and there ended up being 2 national champions. So I've talked to you about giving you some criticism from experts, talked to you about money issues that get in the way, and I've also talked to you about how the ranking system is flawed in general. Thank you.
All right, the proposition is identified. The phrasing on it's a little complicated. It's got multiple parts to it. The secondary claims, when you present them originally, are not phrased as declarative statements, but they're expository claims. And it's, I think it's going to be a clearer argument if you have declarations on those points. The signposting, though, as you're speaking, is very clear and easy to follow, so we're not going to get too lost on that, but it would be easier to see how the arguments fit together if the declarations were building on one another. You're building kind of a chain of arguments on this issue. I thought you had good examples that you utilized. Most of the examples you don't need a source citation on because they're pretty well known and they're factual in nature. The factual information I didn't think there was any problem with. I would have liked a little bit more criticism of the of a couple of the other processes and whether or not they are legitimate processes that dealt with authorities. You had a very good quote, for instance, from the one statistician at UC Irvine criticizing the computer ranking system, and I like that, and I just thought a little bit more information like that would be useful. The illustrations are okay. Like I said, mostly you're talking about factual data. There are a couple of places where you're on the brink of making a value claim about the importance of one bowl relative to the other. Obviously, the financial issues are the bigger question, and that's one of the, speaking of things that are incalculable, that's one of the reasons that teams get chosen for going to a bowl or not, and that is the financial ramifications of those kinds of things. I don't know how well some teams travel when it comes to bowl season, and let's face it, TCU, I don't know how many TCU fans are going to be traveling across the country to go to any bowl, Poinsettia Bowl or whatever kind of bowl it is. So it's just the financial issues. I think that needed to be discussed a little bit more. All right, thank you.